Hey, what is up guys, I'm KBHD here, and this is the Oppo Find 7a. So what Oppo actually did recently was they released two phones at the same time, the Oppo Find 7 and the Oppo Find 7a. The 7 being the higher end, beastly device that we all expected, and the 7a being a sort of a step down, $100 cheaper, a sort of a little brother. The 7 isn't out yet, but this 7a is probably the best look we're going to get, obviously, at what to expect with the Find 7. So without any more confusion between the two names, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Find 7a, the little brother, and see what makes it so special. So the design of this 7a is going to be exactly the same as the Find 7, and I really like the way this phone looks and feels in the hand. I actually didn't at first, but it really grew on me and I'm a fan of it now. Now don't get me wrong, it's a big phone. You gotta realize it has a 5.5-inch 1080p display, and the Find 7 will have a 5.5-inch 2560 by 1440 display. So you can see next to the Galaxy S5 here, which has a 5.1-inch display, that it looks rather large. It's a lot bigger in the hand, and there's a lot of phone going on here, no doubt. Even next to the notoriously big Galaxy Note 3, you're still looking at a slightly taller phone on the Oppo side. So you're definitely looking at a big phone, but to tell you the truth, I really didn't notice. Like, even if you didn't hold the other phones, you wouldn't really think that this is a massive phone. They've done a great job keeping the bezels slim and a really trim, handsome profile so the phone doesn't actually feel like a 5.5-inch phone. Really, the main way you know that it's solid and well built is its weight. It's 170 grams versus the all-metal 1M8's 160. And it reminds me of that Find 5 from earlier. Actually, when the build materials are so dense like this, the whole glass front, the metal frame all around the sides, just the way the phone feels, it screams quality again. Reminds me exactly of the Find 5. So I really do like the phone's design. Like I mentioned, it is quite thin for its size. It's got a pretty big battery, but it's still pretty light. And despite the fact that it's a smooth back material, it's still pretty easy to hold. It's not slippery like the HTC One was because you have those edges of the phones to hold. It's square instead of round. And another awesome point about the design, the button placement is perfect. You have the power button right where your hand falls nicely on the phone. If you hold it in your right hand, you can press the power button, you can press the volume keys. That's really nice. But actually what I think is one of the coolest parts of the design of this phone is in the chin of it. Right behind the chin, it's what Oppo calls the Skyline notification light. So there's this big blue glowing LED notification light behind the chin bar of this phone. It looks really nice. Thing is, it is only blue, so obviously it's a notification light, so it would be nice to have like red and yellow and green and different colors to represent different things, but it is pretty cool. It looks beautiful when you're charging. When you get a new notification, it pulses very vibrantly, and it looks really cool along the width of the phone. So that's nice, and if the Find 7 doesn't have it, at least I think the next version, Oppo, you should have a multicolor LED because that would be super duper useful for a lot of people. So this phone is rocking Android 4.3 with Oppo's Color OS on top, and we've seen Color OS on their other phones like the Oppo N1 and the Oppo Find 5, so we expected it again here on the Find 7. And it's got a lot of improvements. It's got a lot of interesting, nifty pros and cons, some cool features that really make it a unique experience. It's really like no other smartphone skin experience, and I like a lot of it. So one big problem everyone seems to have with one skin or another, whether it's TouchWiz or HTC Sense or Sony skin or whatever, is just the way it looks, aesthetics. Sometimes things just don't look the way you want them to. And I gotta be honest, out of the box, I really didn't like the way Color OS looks, but what's nice is they have a built-in themer, a whole store of free themes to change the look of your launcher and your home screen. So I actually have this Jelly Bean theme going on here, so you can see all of my icons, and the whole launcher resembles the experience of stock Android, so pretty similar to a Nexus. Now, this doesn't change the look of inside the applications. Obviously, the notification bar or inside all the stock apps, they still look like Color OS, but it definitely changes the feel of the OS just by refreshing the launcher. It just feels different. And same with the lock screen, actually. The only reason I have this sick lock screen here is because I found it in the lock screen themer, which does the exact same thing. So you can choose different lock screens, download them locally, store them, and basically switch between them whenever you want. You can totally change the look of your lock screen. And there are a lot of them. It's a pretty robust store, so color me impressed there. And yeah, Color OS has a bunch of other things going for it. One is there's no on-screen buttons on this phone, so you have these very faint menu, home, and back buttons that Color OS works with. So remember how on the HTC One M8 you can double tap to turn the screen on, but you still need the power button to turn it off? So Oppo has done this same thing where you can double tap to wake, But now you can double tap that home button to sleep the display as well. So in theory, you now really never have to touch the power button at all. So that's nice. You also have some really nice widgets. Some of these go really full screen and hide the notification bar. They're super immersive. We first saw these on the Oppo Find 5, and the selection keeps growing, and these things keep evolving every time I see them, so that's cool. And of course, you have access to a ton of awesome wallpapers, and you can even change the home screen swiping effect right from that long press menu. So lots of nice stuff going on here, lots of shortcuts. And I guess one of the most significant shortcuts is gestures. So when you swipe down from the right-hand side anywhere on this phone, you'll get that regular notification shade. Of course, your quick settings, your brightness toggle, your notifications, etc. But when you swipe down from the left corner, down comes your oh-so-colorful gesture panel. So it comes programmed with a pair of gestures already, but you can basically add anything you want. You can draw any shape with your finger and have it mapped to launch any application or call any contact or whatever you want. By default, drawing a circle will launch the camera from wherever you are. And speaking of the camera, this phone has an excellent camera. I don't want to say it surprised me, but I really didn't expect it to be this nice of a camera. And that's coming from someone like me who's used the Sony Xperia Z1, iPhone 5S, Galaxy S5, etc. So first of all, the user interface, it's nice. It's very clean, simple, intuitive, and that's pretty important to a nice camera experience. Your settings button on the bottom left gets you access to all your normal features, like changing the photo resolution up to the max, 13 megapixels, or maxing out the 4K video recording capability. And this camera will even shoot raw images, and it has a number of other modes. But what's really interesting is the one button called HD Picture, which is going to be renamed in a software update to be called Ultra HD. This is being touted as the button that will give you 50 megapixel pictures, though it's some software stitching tricks involved. So of course I turned it on and I tried it, and it kind of works, kinda. So here's the thing. So this is what an image looks like taken at the normal 13 megapixels, right? The image here is 4160 by 3120. And it's even got some HDR going on, so it's very detailed throughout. And this is what the crop looks like of that skyline. So when I really get in close to that Freedom Tower, that's what it looks like, okay? So then I press the magic button and take another picture again, this time with Ultra HD on. So now the resolution is way bigger. It's 8160 by 6120. And for the record, yes, that is 50 megapixels. And the overall picture you can see looks a little flatter, but what happens when I crop here, well, it's definitely got a lot of detail. It looks a bit sharper, but side by side, it's obviously not looking quite as sharp as an actual 50 megapixel camera would. But really, you wouldn't expect it to. It's a phone here. Basically, what I'm saying here is it's a law of diminishing returns. This particular feature, leaving this mode on, it'll do as best as it can with software stitching to get as much detail out of the image as it can. And it does take an extra second or two of processing to composite this stuff, so you might as well leave it on for taking pictures of still subjects. But it doesn't look much better than, say, a panorama photo from the Galaxy S5, which can easily blow up to like 20 megapixels by itself. I've done it. So what I'm trying to say here is, don't think of this as the 50 megapixel photo mode, just think of this as the enhanced detail mode for still subjects, just like HDR mode is an enhanced dynamic range mode for still subjects. And for moving subjects, this camera is plenty fast anyway. The shutter is damn near instant. I was very confident taking photos with this camera. And the detail in regular shots is pretty solid to begin with, and I'm a fan of the pretty aggressive HDR processing in that mode on this camera. So you know what? I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the camera on the 7A, and I'm assuming that will carry over to the big brother Find 7 when that's available. So the Oppo Find 7A actually has a slightly smaller battery than the Find 7. It has a 2800 milliamp hour removable battery. But here's what's badass about this. You might have heard about it. It's got this really, really fast charging technology. It's really not all that new technology. It just has a beast of a charger. So there's a special white charging brick that comes with this phone, and it's a little intimidating at first, but essentially you'll notice that if you look at like your normal phone charger, it's usually 1 amp, maybe 1.5 amps. And if you look at a tablet charger, that usually comes in at 2, maybe 2.5 amps. This one we're looking at here is a 4.5 amp charger. It's gonna throw way more current through the battery, and that will in turn charge it way faster. So you have to use this exact model that comes in the phone box if you want to get that super fast charging. I kind of wish I could use a different one or maybe a longer cable, because out the box it's only maybe about a meter long cable. I kind of wish it was longer, more than just 3.5 feet. But really it's all about using this power brick to charge your phone ridiculously fast. So obviously with this ridiculously powerful charger, I was able to charge this phone super fast, obviously only with this included charging brick, but I was able to go from 0% to 13% in 5 minutes. And if you do the percentage by minute calculation, this thing is charging really fast. So you can charge your phone really quickly. It'll go all the way to 100% in just a couple minutes. But the thing is, the battery life actually wasn't all that great. Obviously using the phone a lot. I'm using it heavily when I'm testing it. I'm gaming a lot. I'm doing a lot of web browsing, a lot of Twitter. And I found that while that kind of usage was normal, that was all fine, the standby time was really weak compared to some other phones I've used. I just came off testing the Oppo, the HTC One M8. That had a fantastic standby time. You could forget to charge it overnight, and it would have almost the same amount of battery when you wake up. Not so with this phone. This phone's going to drop 10 to 15% overnight. I could attribute that to the Color OS, or the ROM they have on this phone. It could just be some software tweaks they need to work out, some stuff running in the background, but for now, I think they need to work on the standby time, and hopefully it'll be able to last as long as other phones with a 2800 milliamp hour battery. So overall, you know what? I'm impressed with the 7A. A big, beautiful screen and a nice design in a phone like this and a well-constructed package. I really like that. Obviously, Color OS will have plenty of software updates, and they're constantly working on that. We've seen Oppo push updates. They've already pushed an update during the time I've been testing the phone. So this gives you a pretty good idea of how beastly the Find 7 is going to be when that comes out with a 2.5K display, with the 2.5 gigahertz quad-core processor, 3 gigs of RAM, 3000 milliamp hour battery. That's going to be an even more awesome experience. But for now, this phone is pretty solid, and if you don't want to spend the extra $100, this is a pretty sweet option to consider. I like the Find 5. I really like the Find 7A. Can't wait to check out the Find 7. So that's been it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button below. And also there's a subscribe button below so you don't miss other reviews like this or tech videos on this channel. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Peace.